We're going to create a basic calculator using the knowledge we learned so far in Java object-oriented programming. So in this project, you will use classes, methods, and objects to create a simple arithmetic calculator. The calculator will be able to add two integers, subtract two integers, multiply, divide, and apply the modulo operator on two integers. The instructions provided are general guidelines. Upon completion of the project, feel free to explore more in the learning environment. And we have an important note here. It says, moving forward, all projects will require that you define the main method manually. When you click Save, when you click the Save button below, an attempt to run your Java code is made. However, Java will return an error if you attempt to run a Java program without first defining a main method. If you encounter such an error, do not worry. You can define the main method ahead of time in order to avoid seeing the error. Okay. So let's start this. All right. If we have a look at the tasks, we have to check them off as we complete them. So the first task goes like this. Create a public class called calculator. Okay. So we're going to say public class calculator. Okay. We're going to open and close the curly braces. And this is a simple class. We've seen this one so far. Okay. Now, task number 2 goes like this. Inside the class, create a calculator constructor. You can leave the contents on the constructor empty. Okay, what we need to add before we do anything else, so before we do the task number 2, we need to also add the main method. Okay, so public static void main, and then we add string args. Okay, and it says inside of the class, okay, inside the class create the calculator constructor. Okay, so we have to, let's put some comments as well to kind of get used to using them. So constructor, and we're going to say public calculator, okay, because we need to use the name of the actual class, yeah, to match the constructor. And it says leave the contents of the constructor empty. Okay, so we have here an empty constructor. Okay, moving on to task number 3. Next, create a public method that returns an int and call it add. So we need to create a method, a public method named add that returns an int. Okay, and we say methods. So public, I'm gonna say it's an int here because it needs to return an int. Okay, so public int add, open and close the curly braces, and this one needs to return an int. Okay, so create a public method that returns an int and call it add. Okay, return okay, well, let's leave it like this. We know this needs to return something, so it needs to return an int. Okay, but in task number 4 we get a bit more information about this method add, because the task in number 3, it's only very limited information. So let's have a look at the next one as well. So next task, it says the add method should accept 2 parameters. For example, int a and int b. Okay, So we're going to take those, I'm going to copy them and add them here. So now we have a method called add, and this method is going to return an integer. And also this method takes two parameters of type int, one called a and the other one called b. Now in task number 5, so we still have this method, it still needs to return something, but we're still not quite clear on what it should return. Hopefully the information in task number 5 is gonna clear this up for us. Now the add method should add the two integer parameters that a user will specify. Inside the add method, return the sum of a and b. So now it's very clear what this method should return. We know it should return something, an int, but now we actually know the whole picture, the whole information. So return a plus b, okay? Or we could have done, for example, I'm gonna copy this, or I'm gonna delete that, and I'm gonna say int c, so we can create a whole different variable of type int that is gonna store the sum of a plus b, okay, and then we can return c, and this will work just as fine, okay? But as you can see, we will have two lines of code here, so line number 10 and line number 11. But if we want to make the code a bit more compact and a bit shorter, and it's going to work just as fine, we can say this, return a plus b, okay? And it's still going to be perfectly fine. It's going to work just fine. Now in task number 6, it says, next create another similar method called subtract. The subtract method should accept two int parameters, just like the add method does, okay? So we're gonna say public. At the moment, it doesn't say anything, so it says just create another. It doesn't say anything about this method returning something, even though I do believe that it will return something as well. But we'll find this as we go through the rest of the tasks. We're going to do just one by one. So this one says, create another similar method called subtract. The subtract method should accept two int parameters. So we're going to use just that information. We know public void so far, okay? Subtract, and this method is gonna take two parameters just like the methods above did, okay? Alright, we've done task number 6. Let's have a look at task number 7. Now it says inside the subtract method, return the difference of a and b. So now we know we need to return something in this method, a minus b, which automatically we know that this now is not going to be void anymore. So this method cannot be void, simply because it does return something, and this something, if we have an integer minus an integer, well, we're going to have another integer, okay? So therefore, if it's going to return this calculation here, which is going to be, in the end, is going to be an integer, then it means that our method is going to be returning an int and not, it can't be void, okay? So therefore we have public int and then the name of the method, okay? So we've completed task number 7 as well. Then it says create another method called multiply. The multiply method should accept two int parameters, okay? So we're going to say public. We're gonna say void multiply, and it should accept two int parameters. Let's copy this again. So int a and int b. So far we don't know anything about this method, so we're gonna keep it as void, and we can change it as we go through the rest of the tasks. If we have a look at the task number 9, it says inside of the multiply method, return the product of a and b. So if we return A times B, then we know that this method cannot be void, but instead is going to be int to match whatever result is we're gonna be whatever type the result that we get here is going to be. So that was task number 9. If we have a look at task number 10, it says create another method called divide. It should accept 2 int parameters. So we're going to say public void divide. Okay. And it should accept, okay, so let's give it the parameters. And that was task number 10 done. Okay, so no, sorry, create another method called divide. It should accept 2 int parameters. Okay, so we've done task number 10. Moving on to task 11, it says inside the divide method function return a divided by b. So we gotta return a divided by b. Okay, by the way, I see that here they used method and function. So method and a function, so they use different naming, but the method and a function is one and the same thing. So it's just a different way of saying the same thing. Just the way we said an instance variable is the same as a or no, maybe let's just leave it there. We have a method, and a method is the same as a function. Okay, let's just leave it there because there's still lots of things that we need to learn, and there's no point of going over it while we still have a lot of things to cover. So a function and a method is one and the same thing. End of for now. Okay, create another method called modulo. Wait, so we have to here, just to finish up with this method. So with the method divide, this cannot be void because it returns something, and that type is gonna be type int. Okay. Now, if we have a look at the task number 12, it says create another method called modulo. So we have public void modulo. Okay, so we have it like this. The modulo should accept 2 int parameters, so we can do the same thing here. We've done task number 12. We have task number 13. It says inside the modulo function return a modulo b. So we have to return a modulo b. If you remember, modulo is represented by this percentage sign. And also now we know that this method cannot be void, okay, because it does return something. We've done task number 13. Now moving to the next one, number 14. It says create a main method. Can you remember all the keywords necessary for a main method? I think we've already done this here on line 29. We've created the main method. Okay, inside the main method, create a calculator object called myCalculator. Okay, so because we have this class calculator, now inside this main method, we can create an object. So calculator. Does it say what name? Yes, it does say. So it says use this name, myCalculator, equals to, remember we have to use the keyword new in order to create a new object. Okay, and then we have to use the name of the constructor. Okay, so like so on line 31 we have created a new object, of type calculator, okay, so from our calculator class. Now on task 16, it says print out the value of calling the add method on my calculator. Pass in 5 and 7 as parameters. Okay, so now we have this object created here, okay? So we're going to use the name of the variable that holds that one, or holds the reference to that object. We're going to use that, and we're going to create, or we're going to call the method named add onto that object, and we're going to pass it 5 and 7 as parameters, okay? Print out the value of calling the add method, okay? So we have to print this one out, okay? So I'm gonna copy it and keep it there for a second while we're gonna print out system dot out dot print ln, and we're gonna print out the results of this calculation here, okay, which is gonna be add 5 and 7, okay, so we should get 12. Okay, now we've completed task number 16. Moving on the next line, print out the value of calling the subtract method on my calculator. Pass in 45 and 11, okay, so we have to do the same thing. We want to print out on the screen the value of calling the method subtract on our object, okay, and we'll pass it in the values 45 and 11. Okay, now moving forward, we have, if you completed this project correctly, the output should be 12 and 34. Feel free to explore more with the program. What are some ways in which the program could be improved? Okay, so we're gonna click this one on as well. And then it says add comments near the top of the program that describes what the program does. Let's do this as well. So at the top of the program, anyways, come on. So at the top of the program, let's add a simple, so we're just gonna add some comments, or a simple comment that kind of describes the overall idea of our program. A simple calculator using methods. Okay, if I'm gonna press save, we are getting some sort of an error. Let's go and sort this out. So it says, okay, on line 33, go and find some sort of an error that you just typed, and it says package item does not exist. Well, of course it doesn't, because I just misspelled it. So it's supposed to be system, and obviously I missed out an S somewhere in there. So, and of course it caught up on this other one on line 34, because since I only copied this line and just replaced the name of the method, of course it copied the mistake as well, okay? So if I'm gonna run it again, if we have a look at task number 18, it says if you completed this project correctly, the output should be 12 and 34, which is exactly what we got, okay? We added the comments near the top of the program that described what we've done, okay? So this is the project of creating a very simple calculator using methods, okay, in Java.